On this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds, we dive further into reward loops and gameplay loops, which are different, and rewarding players in both video games and board games. We're with Chris Cantero, who's created a game called High Fructose in the roguelite genre. And we kind of break down how these types of games attract players and what makes them organically successful. Let's dive in.
Hey folks, this episode is brought to you by Hero Time Manufacturing. That is Hero Time, the numeral1.com. Hirsch has been a regular on our podcast. We highly recommend his services. He is a man of integrity. Hero Time, they can make anything. They've got competitive pricing and they even do game prototypes. So make sure to check out Hero Time, numeral1.com. A link is in the show notes. And if you use the code crowdfundingnerds101, you can get a 3% discount on your production through them. Let's get back into the episode.
Game begin.
Let's go.
Go back to the shadow. You shall not fail. Crowdfunding Nerds.
Amazing.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another awesome episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. I'm your host, Andrew Lowen, and I am joined by Chris Cantero, and not Sean this week. Sean is AWOL, and instead we have a better looking, higher jiu-jitsu rank with us. How you doing, Chris?
Good.
Good. Glad you're good.
Awesome blue belt.
Yeah. Heck yeah. So Chris, Chris is a video game developer, has worked on a number of awesome intellectual properties. We've had him on the podcast before, but we wanted to really kind of focus on the core gameplay loop, which we got into a little bit in our last episode. We talked about Mega Bonk a little bit, which we can expand a little bit more. But what really the crux of that discussion was about the core gameplay loop, and what makes it fun and addictive is something that we touched on, but I'd really like to get further into that in this episode, because you're an expert in video game development and you have like your own personal projects. And so I'm sure you're thinking about the people that are going to be playing your game and what would make them want to buy it, what would make them want to keep playing it, what would make them want to share it, right? And so those lessons, in my view, are rather universal if they're about a video game or a board game or what. So it's an entertainment product, and I think the things that we can pull and learn are going to be awesome. So welcome to the show, and tell, for those that aren't familiar with who you are, can you give just like a little bit about your background and experience and what you're working on now?
Sure. Yeah, I went to school at Savannah College Art and Design, graduated in 2010 in animation. And I my first job is I worked at on a movie, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And then I moved on from there. I moved back to Dallas and I worked on some commercials. And then I moved to San Diego and I worked at a video game company called High Moon and worked on a couple games, Transformers, Deadpool. And then I got married. I moved to LA. This is really quick. And I worked on some more movies like Hunger Games, another Planet of the Apes movie, Goosebumps. And then I got back in game dev and I worked for Rating Software and then a couple other companies. I ended up at id Software, worked on Doom Eternal and Doom the Dark Ages. And then I moved over to Unity because I wanted to be an indie dev. And then Unity laid off 25% of the company. And now I'm here.
Wow.
I started Kazak Games. And that's what I've been doing for the last year and a half.
That's awesome. I knew you worked on Doom. You said Doom Eternals and then Doom the Dark Ages too?
Yeah, I did pre-production on Dark Ages.
Wow. That's a pretty cool one. It's like my favorite iteration of Doom so far is what just in the look and the feel and where they're going with it. Like that blend of like Doom, which is kind of a dark FPS. It's now a dark fantasy FPS.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so the big mechanics that came with that was the shield mechanic and like the dragon and then the mech. So I got to do early prototypes for all three of those. So that was fun to do.
That's amazing. So you have a lot of experience in the industry working with very successful IPs and successful companies or projects, products that did really well. And now share what you're working on now.
Sure. So I'm mostly a solo developer, but I have had several people help me. So like when I went into this project, I'm like, well, okay, I'm a solo developer. I got to have like a realistic kind of goal here. So I was looking at other games that I could, realistically do by myself. And I found a game called Brotato, which is a really simple game, and it's just really addicting and fun. So I was like, can I take that and make it a 3D game? So that was basically my idea. So that's how I came across doing High Fructose. And yeah, so it's like Fruit Ninja, Brotato, and Ghost Runner all combined into one.
That's fantastic. And it's a kind of a roguelike experience where you fight through levels and fight more difficult monsters, and they kind of work like weird fruit, and the fruit starts rotting and dealing more damage and doing more gnarly things, right? And
Yeah,
so you've
totally. Yeah.
got different combinations. What I found kind of interesting about it was you had different combinations of fruit that attacks in different ways. Bananas shoot, bullets or whatever, and strawberries try to bite you. And if you have a bunch of one type of enemy on the battlefield, it's kind of easy to deal with them. But when they start to mix together, it becomes a little more complicated. Am I crazy? But you have like giant coconuts that'll just start rolling on the battlefield now, or I can't remember exactly all the things you've got going on. But can you
Yeah,
share a little bit about like what what are the foils that you put in the player's way to make it interesting? So you can wall run, you've got a samurai sword to chop things, and you have generally it's like a battlefield type game that's roguelike. So
yeah.
if you die, you have to start over, but then you get probably some rewards. So, but can you tell me like what is the experience like for the player when they hit start game?
Yeah, sure. So right now I have like I'm inspired by Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So there's four ninjas. So the first one you have access to is the fox, and he has the sword. And he's like kind of Leonardo, the leader. And so you start so it's 20 waves, just like Brotato, and each wave introduces a new enemy. And it's kind of like Pokemon. So like for the final boss is a dragon fruit. So the first enemy you find is a dragon fruit. I mean, like fruit, and then it evolves like Pokemon to a dragon fruit. So every enemy kind of has this kind of progression. So I think that the enemies are interesting, and there's different ways you can take them out. And then, like you said, the banana has a projectile, and some harder enemies have counter windows. So there's kind of like a battle chess kind of element. Like there's a certain way that you can take out enemies that's easier or faster. And then every level is procedurally generated, like traditional roguelike. So every wave will be different. And what else? Every 5 waves, there's like a harder boss. So on wave 5, you fight the Mega Strawberry, and so every boss kind of hones on that skill you've learned in the last 5 waves. So it's just like it's a mastery kind of thing. And then also, since it's like a ninja kind of game, we have like a jiu-jitsu belt system. So like once you beat the first 20 waves, you get your blue belt, and if you beat, it gets harder after that point. So after the next 20 waves, you get your purple belt, and etc. And
That's awesome. So, the actual gameplay, it's really like, it reminds me of, well, there's this game that we talked about on our last episode, and you and I talked about it privately together called Mega Bonk, that, there's just like a bunch of flashing lights and crazy stuff going on. Like with High Fructose, it almost feels like you're playing a slot machine in a Vegas casino, like a really nice slot machine. And, there's a lot of like visual pleasure for the eyes when you're playing your game. Was that always the intent? And how do you kind of, I guess, how do you keep players playing it? Is a question that I have. It's probably a big question.
oh yeah, so I think the progression. I think Mega Bonk does that really well. It's just like so many different things that the endless replayability. There's always something new to unlock. The levels are different. Every run, like it's a new procedurally generated map, and everything's different. And yeah, so just Mega Bonk does it really well. Like there's just so many different things to do, and the enemies are interesting. The player we can play is like there's one character called Calcium. He's a skeleton. That's just funny and fun, and he rides a skateboard, right? um, so yeah, so relating to Mega Bonk, so they took the Vampire Survivor idea and they just kind of like it feels like the Apple, the BlackBerry thing. So BlackBerry was like the dominant phone, and so Apple came and they made their iPhone. So they took the concept and just elevated it. I think that's what Mega Bonk did with Vampire Survivors, and that's kind of my goal with High Fructose is like to take Brotato and kind of take it to the next level, like 3D. That's the
So
goal anyway.
yeah, so then so the one thing that I find really interesting with games like this is that when you play them one time, let's say you play through one time, you maybe get to the end and you fail at the boss. It's a very frustrating moment, right? It reminds me in a way of like back in the day, I would play Final Fantasy VII, and I'm up at like 2 a.m. trying to just run back and forth and gain XP or whatever it's called, like AP, to level my these certain abilities, materia. If you guys are nerds, I wanted to max out Knights of the Round and get a second Knights of the Round materia because of that. And if you're a super nerd, you'll understand. That's also in their late 30s or early 40s. But yeah, so I'm doing this for like 2-3 hours, and I fall asleep and get killed by something. Like it just late at night, like I'm holding the controller and I fall asleep in the middle of a battle and die. And or get one thing that happened was I had like a really, really important weapon stolen from me, fighting these dudes, magic pots that want to take elixirs. And so there are these moments that happen after hours of play without saving, and you die. It makes it there's this level of frustration and demoralization that happens that is very severe and can actually, in the past, I mean, I'm sure being a gamer, you've had experiences similar to this where you just quit. You're just like, forget it, right? And so in High Fructose, if you make it through, let's say 19 out of the 20 waves and then die, or if you make it through the 20th wave, get to the boss, the final, 10% health of the boss, and then you die, why would someone want to play it again? And that's I think a conceptual question. Like there's this moment of extreme frustration. Why would somebody hit start game again? What is kind of the loop? You've got the gameplay loop, but then you have like the overall loop of, of like task and reward. So what reward do they get like at the end of the High Fructose like roguelike experience?
So there's a game called Enter the Gungeon. It's a roguelike. Or no, yeah, roguelike. So there's different there's a roguelike and roguelite. So the
I actually
roguelike.
met the developer of Enter the Gungeon.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's awesome.
That's cool.
Well, first time I played Enter the Gungeon, so it's more of a traditional roguelike game. So when you die, you go to the beginning, like you get nothing, and that really made me upset. And I stopped it, and I came back later eventually because people kept talking about it, and I played more through. But I lean more to the roguelike because roguelite. I'm sorry, because like when you on traditional roguelites, like when you do a run, you actually get things, and you can become more powerful, and like it gives you more incentives to like go back and start over. So I like those kind of games because like you get something for dying, right? It's not like all for nothing sort of thing. So I think that's the appeal of a roguelike and what keeps me playing those.
So did you implement that roguelite feature into High Fructose in some way?
Yeah, so when you die, you can unlock new things. So like a new character, um, you just new abilities, new stats, and you just become more powerful the more you play.
Hey, crowdfunding nerds, if you're looking for an awesome fulfillment partner for US shipping, you should really consider Bridge Distribution and Fulfillment. I personally use them. I've used them for multiple projects. They do such a great job. They also can fulfill Amazon orders and get you prepped for Amazon and their warehousing team. I have been so happy using Bridge Distribution. I'm really proud that they're sponsoring us. If you reach out, bridgedist.com, that's bridgedist.com, let them know we sent you. All right, now back to the show.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really important element of these types of games, and something that a lot of people they develop games. There are a number of ways to do this, I think, but like the concept to me is you need to have, it's like a give and take. I think the days of, I mean, like Super Ghosts and Goblins, like back in on Super Nintendo, or Super Ghouls and Ghosts, or Ghouls and Ghosts, I think was like regular Nintendo. I remember playing these types of games. You're playing Maximo and you're running through this dungeon and fighting ghosts in a castle and whatever. And then when you get hit by something, you lose your armor. And if you get hit again, you're running around in like boxer shorts with hearts on them. And when you get hit again, you actually are defeated. And I think you have like 3 lives, which from what I remember, but if you are defeated that 3rd time, so that your goal is like, oh my goodness, I got like I'm vulnerable now. I need to go get a set of armor. And you're just trying to survive until you can find a set of armor. You're like, good. At least now I have this set of armor. I can take a hit, and so you're afforded the ability to play slightly inefficient or to mess up once and not lose everything. But when you lose, or even in Super Ghouls and Ghosts, when you win, you find out, oh, you didn't have the right secondary item. You need to go all the way back to the beginning of the game, and now you can play, and this interesting secondary item will drop that is the only thing that can damage the final boss. So you have to run through again. But if you're defeated, you just straight up have no progress. That's it. You lost. But the kind of the weird appeal of the Super Nintendo was that is the entire game. The entirety of the game is, can you beat the boss or not? And so the whole experience is like, okay, I'm frustrated and annoyed, and I quit this game for like a week, and I'll play other things. But the appeal of like, can I do it, is it hits you, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna try again. But nowadays there are so many other games that provide this dopamine hit after that experience. You're like, I messed up, but I get a consolation prize. So nowadays, more modern design is like, whenever you lose, you get some sort of consolation prize that encourages you, that makes the next run. It's like, one of the things, board game or video game, whatever. I think, how will this be different next time? If I'm playing a cooperative game and I run into a boss and I just get smashed, it's frustrating. I want to win. Winning is fun, and so I'm playing against this boss. I'm thinking, okay, I lost. What could I have done differently next time? And if I can't think of anything, maybe because I'm not good enough to recognize, like, oh, I could have moved left instead of right, or oh, I should have, waited one more turn, or I should have healed that one, instead of attacked for that one move, or whatever. If I can't, as a player, think back to something that I could have done differently, then I'm like, man, I guess this game is broken, or whatever. Like, you're not likely to blame your own lack of skill for, like, people vastly overestimate their level of skill in everything in life generally. And but what I love about that roguelite, the ability to, like, oh, I gain plus 5% more damage. Like on a PC game, you can, or whatever, a video game, you can do stuff like this, where you gain a little bit more damage, or you gain a little bit more move speed, or now you can jump a little higher, or you can wall run a little longer. And all of a sudden it's like, well, if I keep this up, you think about yourself in terms of like, in this hamster wheel where you're running and running and running. If you get these rewards, it's almost like you're actually making, it feels like you're making meaningful progress. And that is something you can say, even if you can't think of how would I have beaten this game, there's no way I could have done it. That little bit of it's like a carrot on a stick to a player, where they want to continue.
Yeah, I think those things are really great. Like, at the end of a run, you get back and you're like 5% faster. So I played a bunch of roguelites, and I've started to become like more attuned to like what's more fun, And also, like, I wanted to like design a good roguelike, so I like read a bunch of Steam reviews on the good and bad, games, and I saw a bunch of reviews. It was like, this roguelite is trash because all the permanent upgrades is just jump speed, like the bare basics. So like the permanent upgrades that like change the rules of the game is what players really seem to like. It just makes the game more replayable. So when I first was doing High Fructose, like I did the easy thing, like I was getting more speed or that sort of thing. But now I have this like recipe system. So now like you'll get new recipes that will unlock and they kind of change the way you play the game. So
can you give us an example?
yeah, so there's this one recipe. I think it's called Coconut Crush. So I do all the voiceover. So I goes Coconut Crush. So when you do the recipe, it'll set everything on fire. So makes no sense logically why it does that, but
Yeah. So then, okay, go ahead, continue.
But yeah, like I think roguelites that kind of lean into the permanent stuff you get that kind of change the rules of the game. Really,
So
like Hades does that pretty well too. Like when you start a new run over, a different god will pop up and give you some kind of new upgrade that wasn't there before.
So then how do you keep track of all these, or how does a player keep track? Is it like you've got Coconut Crush now and it's just a passive thing that now has a chance to light enemies on fire during future runs? Or is it this recipe, you get it in the game? I remember you actually doing early iterations of the recipe system. You were like, if you get if you kill 3 strawberries and then 2 bananas in a row, you get like a small bit of health back or something. And so that's like just like while you're running through the actual 20 waves, you can do stuff like that, which I think is really cool. But then this Coconut Crush thing, that is that a persistent effect that like will impact future runs? How do you keep track? Is it in a menu that you've unlocked, like level 1 Coconut Crush, or what is the process?
So at the start of every wave, you get 3 cards you can choose from. You can choose what recipe you want. So your recipe will fills up. So every run you can choose different combinations and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So one run you might not get at all. Like you might not get the option to pick it.
So then is like I'm thinking there are two lines of keeping keep players engaged. That one would be like this out of combat between games, like between runs. You have a system for kind of escalating player prowess and that kind of thing. And then in the actual game, like during the actual run, you also have a system for custom, which I think is both are really important in a game like this now, where you have a system for like customizing and adapting player experience from one game to another. So that it's not like my sword swings faster, but it's the same exact sword, it's the same exact swing, so which is this Coconut Crush skill? Is it like something that you can unlock out of the battle and then in future games it starts showing up, or how's it work?
So like it shows up in the later waves, and it's like a card randomly generated that you can choose from if it pops up.
Mm-hmm.
So like in Mega Bonk, when you go up to like a chest, there'll be like this like slot wheel machine kind of thing, and you'll always get something different. But like if you played up a bunch of different runs, you might get the same kind of things. And then also you can like banish it or pass on it or like re-roll.
Yeah.
And so that's a similar kind of thing when I'm doing.
Cool. Yeah. It's interesting because in Mega Bonk, you have these different, like you can get a bow, you can get a fire staff, you can get a gun, you can get, like an aura thing that deals damage to everything close to you. And once you get like you have like you mentioned, the guy Calcium, the skeleton on a skateboard, which I think is hilarious. He has a starting weapon. Like all these characters have starting weapons. So he has bones that he throws, and so you can get that plus 3 others. And when you get the 3 others, all of the other options disappear for the various weapons you can get, and it's like you can level your weapon up so that it, the bones start bouncing, or you shoot 2 bones instead of 1, or other things like that, which I find pretty interesting. But the concept of like the 3 options is really, really popular now. The first place I ever saw that was Teamfight Tactics. or like basically League of Legends, Riot Games did some sort of mode that was the first time I personally saw it. I don't know if it was the first time that it existed, but now you've got team fight tactics, and you've got like this arena type game of League of Legends where you play you and one partner control each a character, but then you get to customize with items that you would buy with gold, but then you also get these shards, which are these three choices. Do you want to have more armor penetration, or do you want to have more health, or do you want to have your maximum health scale off of your ability power or whatever? Like these three random shards will show up and give you these choices. And I really like that. It's almost like that slot machine system where you're not sure what you're going to get during an individual run, but then after the run's over, you also get something that encourages you to play again. And this kind of combination I find is really interesting. When is the first time that you saw this shard system or this three choices, during a run?
Actually, I haven't really picked up on that trend. That's interesting you brought that up. I'll have to pay more attention to that. When I play Mega Bonk, I tend not to get different weapons. I just kind of lay into that one weapon that's with that character. So, like with the calcium character, he has the bone that goes around. Like, I'll just put all my upgrades in that one thing. Because in my mind, like, well, he's the bone character. That's probably the strongest weapon. So I'm just going to ignore all these other weapons. But yeah, I'll have to do a new run and try that. Yeah, so I haven't really noticed the three thing.
Yeah. I find that the giving people choices, so really a meaningful choice is what people are looking for. A meaningful choice that they can feel clever, so like whether it's a board game or a video game, 10 choices is too many. I find the human brain works in sets of three, 2 or 3, but really never more than that. I think more than 3 choices is cognitive overload. But if you think about it, like I look to cars, for example, a car is a very expensive thing, and people need to kind of position why I would buy this car versus that car very, very quickly, so that you can just eliminate all others. I hear things like this all the time where people are like, oh, I'm going to get a new car, or our family's going to get a car, whether it's used or new or whatever. They're never like, I'm not sure what car to get. They're always like, I'm going to get a minivan. And we've pared it down to the Honda Odyssey or the Toyota Sienna or the whatever.
Pacifica.
Yeah, there you go. So there are always like 3 choices, and they pare down to 2, and they do a lot of research on the 2 before they pick one, right? And I think that the human mind, it works toward this, I'm going to make a selection, but I need to have my options pared down so that I can ingest each one enough to see which direction I want to go. Do I want, for cars, do I want more seats? Do I need greater amount of cabin space? Do I want a higher roof? For me, I have too many kids for, a regular car. I have to get like a giant bus of some kind. And so there are a lot of different things that would immediately eliminate, like if you've got 3 kids, then like a 4-seater car is, you're probably not going to be looking at something like that. You're probably going to be looking at like an SUV or a van or whatever. But in video games and board games, you have this same phenomenon is happening. And I think that people are looking for a meaningful choice. Do I go left or do I go right? Is just as meaningful as, do I go northwest? Do I go north? Do I go northeast, southeast, whatever? I mean, all of those things are, you will make one choice, but so many options, I think, kind of devalue the choice that you end up making. You're like, well, I don't know what is the right choice. I'm just going to pick one. Doesn't feel like, it's not a system that allows a player to feel clever. And so when you give them one option out of 3 buttons, then it's like, do you want more damage? Do you want more speed? Or do you want coconut crush? It's like, well, you know, this will this could have a dramatic impact on the future of this run right now. And I can't, you hear people say stuff like this all the time. Like if you watch streamers or YouTube replays of people that play stuff like Mega Bonk or whatever, you hear people say, "This run sucks. Oh, this run sucks. Oh my goodness, this is my run. I got this one thing. This is my run." And then like 8 minutes later, they're like, "This run's terrible. I'm gonna restart." And then like 2 minutes after that, "Oh my goodness, I got this thing." It's like this thing. I swear we're gonna have more heart attacks because of games like Mega Bonk. And they just like the things that happen to your blood pressure when something good or something bad. But like what fascinates me is the fact that the human brain can quickly ascertain whether something was good. Whether, you might not have complete information, like maybe you're a total noob going for the bones and you needed to go for the arrows or whatever, I don't know. But the way that you rationalize it, you're like, this is my strategy. And the more that I see that particular upgrade arise, the more I know that this is my run, that I am, and in the end, I think people want to find these overpowered, broken, epic builds where they just ran through and hit the top of the leaderboard or something like that. Do you have a leaderboard, by the way?
I do, yeah. So it's interesting what you said about how the human brain just knows it's good when it sees it. So I was on Netflix the other day and I saw a Keanu Reeves movie that I'd never heard of before. I saw. I'm like, oh, I want to watch that. It was like a samurai kind of movie. It was like, oh, I'm making a samurai game. Yeah, we'll get some cool ideas. And so I pulled it up. It's called 47 Ronin. Have you heard of
Yep.
it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I watched it for about 15 minutes. I'm like, I don't know about this movie, but it's Keanu Reeves, so it's going to be awesome.
Yep.
Another 15 minutes into, I'm like, let me check the reviews on this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I pulled the reviews. I'm like, oh, okay. So I was feeling it. Like, there's something weird about this movie. And yeah, so I think there is like this instant kind of like, okay, I know this entertainment is good or bad, right away. And which is interesting, like the Mega Bonk Steam page, when you first go to it the first time, it's like, oh, okay, it just looks like a regular game. But then when you jump in and start playing, like the first menu screen is like, it's really simple, but then you jump into the character screen and it's like a dopamine hit. There's like, oh, you can unlock that. Oh, there's all these characters. Like, oh, you can't see that character because it's silhouetted. And there's like a silhouetted character with its name underneath it. And then below that, there's a silhouetted character with just question marks. Like, oh, what's that? So your mind instantly just goes all these different directions without even really thinking about like all the different possibilities. I think that's what Mega Bonk does really well. It's like it introduces these things and like you suddenly make all these different connections. Like, oh, you can do that, but it's not overwhelming. And the gameplay is just super simple. Like you just run around. But then all the different like randomly generated, like there's a greed shrine and like, oh, what's a greed shrine? And then like you have like this fantasy in your head, like, because you have all these different associations with greed, like what does that mean in the game, And like it doesn't tell you exactly what it does. I think it just says like enemies 5% harder or something like that. I'm like, well, it just creates a new question in your mind, like, well, is that all it does, or is it do more things?
Them harder.
It feels like a Goosebumps book. Like there's a cliffhanger at the end of each chapter. Like, oh, what's going to happen next? Like I need to keep investigating.
Yeah, it is. It is very curious, and I think that it applies. So the replayability, I think, is something that a lot of players look for. They want a game that is, board games, infinite replayability is a very common thing that people always say, and it's such a loaded phrase. In fact, people listening to this, I discourage you from saying this game has infinite replayability.
Yeah.
It's such a loaded phrase. Some people will say, oh, this, card game has infinite replayability because there's an infinite combination of cards. It's like, yeah, but there are really only, maybe a few dozen meaningful combinations of cards, or I'm working through like Star Realms. In theory, there's an infinite amount of replayability because there's an infinite combination of the cards that you could draw. But in general, you're looking for a low cost card, and because you have less money early on, And then later in the game, you're looking for high cost cards, and you're looking to get rid of the bad cards in your deck, and you're looking to have your deck concentrated with good cards. And what those cards are is it's almost like a secondary. It matters much less. So Star Realms does not market itself by saying it has infinite replayability, but it's like it features the systems and whatnot. But as a player, I'll do this equation in my head where I'm like, okay, Star Realms is $15. So when I buy Star Realms as a board game, I will play this enough times to make it worthwhile. And video games have kind of a different, actually, I'll stick with board games for a second more. But if let's say there's a board game that's $100, and or like I bought Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era from Chip Theory Games' first Kickstarter where they ran that thing. I spent $400 on that, and it was like, okay, in fact a little bit more because I think I got some extra accessories and stuff. But that game, I would never have taken it seriously if I didn't see myself able to play it like dozens of times, dozens of runs through. If I thought this game looks really good, but it's gonna give me one solid play, then I would just $400 is like I will never do that unless the game goes for hundreds of missions or whatever, like or 100 missions. If I can see myself playing Gloomhaven, for example, is a popular board game they're turning into video games and other things. That is like 100 session game, and it's worth $200. It's like you do this equation like, oh, $2 a session, and if I replay it, it's like pennies, compared to what So I think for video games, in a there are several different lines of reasoning. You'll get different types of players, but for games like this, as soon as you see that like those character portraits that are silhouetted, and it says like unlock this guy by doing this particular thing, it's like, well, I don't understand any of that, but I know that I can unlock this guy, and I know I can kind of figure it out. Maybe I'll stumble into it. Go to the temple and use a key at the top of the altar or whatever. It's like, well, whatever that even means, but I guess I could stumble into that, and that sounds fun. It's like there's this potential. And when you are looking through, like after you finish a game, you look at there's a leaderboard. It's like, okay, I could hit the top of the leaderboard, and that could be that's a potential goal that I have. Then maybe if a particular run is good, like I can cement my name for eternity. And then you see all these upgrade possibilities. Like, okay, well, these
You just froze for a second, but you're back.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. So there are these upgrade possibilities that now mean I can start with stronger things or whatever. Would love to hear your kind of thoughts on all of that. Like, what are things that you look for as a player? Oops, my internet is being weird.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're back.
Sorry. So the question I have is, what are things that you look for as a player that kind of that make you say, okay, this game is $10 on Steam, $20 on Steam. Why would you buy a game that, why would you spend $20? Because in actuality, you're probably likely to play a game like Mega Bonk or High Fructose super duper duper hard for like a month, and then you're over it, right? But for that month, it's like your obsession, or maybe you come back to it and get obsessed again for like another month down the road. But what things make you decide to buy something like that?
Well, so you're a marketing guy. So the first time I heard about Mega Bonk was actually on TikTok. I was looking through TikTok to kind of get ideas of how I could make some TikToks to market my game. And I found Mega Bonk, and like the TikToks were just so good. And like he has the Danny. Have you heard of Danny, the YouTuber?
Yeah.
Like I didn't make the connection at the time, but like his style was exactly the same as Danny. And there's this whole conspiracy theory if he's the same person.
Yep.
Who knows? But like it's just really engaging TikToks, and like he built off the trends, and like it's really clever how he presented his different content. And I was just kind of harding all this stuff to like kind of go back and analyze how he did things. So that's how I found out about that game. And Yeah, social media trends are a really good way to find different games that um so I think if you have a really good game, but if you don't have a good way to like tell people about it, you might not ever see it. So so how do I find games? I honestly just through social media trends, honestly. Uh um I don't know in this day and age if there's better ways to find different games, honestly. Because there's just so many games out there. Like Steam gives you recommendations and all that, but like um I'm not a person to go through my recommendations on Steam. Like if I see a YouTube pop up, like the algorithm designed for me, I'm more likely to see that than scrolling through Steam. So I think like the social media marketing is really powerful for games nowadays.
I heard there was a major influencer named Asmongold that is infamous in some circles and
Yeah,
and famous in others, I guess. But he said something that really made a lot of sense in this area, which was that a good game will be very successful with just a little bit of marketing. But so it can be very successful, like when High Fructose hits, um, and you spend money on Facebook ads or Steam, for um, advertising, or you put it into like humble bundles or whatever. Like there are a lot of things you can do on Steam, but if you get it out there and it catches fire, it will be because people were having such a fun time that they wanted to create TikTok videos, that they wanted to share it, that they talk about it on forums, that they say, "Have you heard of this game? It's awesome." And then that kind of organic wildfire spread. Mega Bonk definitely is, of course, among the top tier. It has as many active players as games that are AAA titles right now, but it's
crazy.
it's nuts. It's kind of pulling a Minecraft in a lot of ways, maybe a version of that. So I think that great games need less marketing and in order to be successful, and that's because the organic marketing is so impactful. And I see this as more important, more critical in video games where thousands of them come out in a month, um, versus board games where you might have like, let's just say like 1,000 hit per month, or maybe 5,000, are released at Essen, which is one of the biggest conventions in the world for board games, right? And or just period, it's one of the biggest conventions in the world. Um, and so I think that to get attention is a challenge to begin with, but I would say for video games, it's a lot. You're obviously competing with a lot more, and so it's a lot easier to just as a fan, you pay attention to what's happening on social media. But in board games, I think you can be much more effective running ads like on Facebook. And I think that board game fans, me being one of them, I'm regularly looking at Facebook ads to see what is the new thing that's coming out. And, am I going to be interested in it? I don't know. But I am actually kind of paying attention to the ads more, because there are so many different styles of games. There are a lot of other places you can go, of course. You can hit up, you know, uh, Board Game Geek is a solid website for stuff like that. Can travel in circles like on Reddit or whatever, but it's less common to find engaging TikTok content about board game stuff.
That was interesting.
Yeah, just because it's less visual, it's more tactile. Like seeing it in front of you on a table.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a really good point about the marketing for video games. It's more like when it really blows up is the organic growth. Um, I kind of feel like it's like a fire. Like there's some kindling and like you spark the flame and like it kind of grows. So like as a developer, I feel like Danny like threw up a couple of TikToks that kind of really showed off how fun the game was. And people saw that like and it kind of just build that fire up. And there's another guy on Twitter I follow, and he made like a really great game. I've been following him for like a year or so. And he posted the other day that he only had 7 people play at the height of the game, which is crazy because it was a really good looking game. And that post went viral, and now he has a ton of players. Like
that's so funny.
it just needs like a little like match to light the flame to get people to just notice you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the battle is for attention, and it's a hard nut to crack. But that's kind of why we're talking about it right now, is like, what is this one style, really one genre of game? We focused on roguelites and whatnot, High Fructose kind of being in that genre. And what is that one thing doing well? And so there are a million of these types of or different genres that we can look at that will give us insight and lessons. But I think that's one thing that makes, like, as game designers and developers, I'm in board games, you are into video games, like development. It's our job to kind of notice those things in our niche. Like, what is going to be that one thing that sends it over the edge? How can like Mega Bonk's gameplay loop. You run around, kill stuff, you gain experience, which gives you levels, which makes it easier to kill stuff. Very much like an MMO style. That, as a core, is just really a piece of the overall loop, like the reward task, task solution reward loop. Like, if you have a task, you figure out how to overcome, and then you get a reward. That is actually pulled out of the actual kind of gameplay loop, the core of the leveling experience and whatnot. And it's like, okay, now that you made it far and maybe you died eventually, but you've gained some sort of currency that you can now spend to make your future runs more interesting or easier, or you unlock a new character or whatever. That reward loop, I think, is something that every player is looking for. And I was thinking actually about Dark Souls, because hard to talk about roguelike without talking about Dark Souls or Elden Ring. The loop is horrible. It's exactly
Well,
it's like,
I was actually about to bring that up, but keep going.
yeah, it's just painful, but it's painful on purpose. It's actually turns it on its head. And that's in my opinion, from an understanding of how these types of reward systems work. You're appealing to players that are looking for something hard, and you're giving them the most extreme version of what they looked for, way more extreme than they ever thought was possible. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I was playing Silk Song when it came out, and it's a lot like Dark Souls. It's really hard, and so when you go up to a boss, there was this one particular boss I was going up to, and the save point was really far away. So like every time you die, you have to go start the save point, and you have to walk forever to get to the boss. And that's what made me quit Silk Songs. Like, I got to make a game. Like, I'm wasting so much time walking from the save point to the boss. I probably will, but go back to Silk Song. But like, I think maybe some people like that, but that's like a complete opposite of Mega Bonk. Was like, so you die, but it's super easy to get back into the game loop and start playing. But with Silk Song, it's like it's a chore to get back to the gameplay loop and keep playing. So it just kind of appeals to very different personality types, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is something to really, I mean, it's funny what little things can turn people off, you know? And so anyway, it's been a good discussion. So before we go, how can people find High Fructose? Where can people connect with you if they have questions or want to engage with you?
Sure. Yeah, High Fructose on Steam. I'm on Twitter, TikTok, Blue Sky, all the things, Instagram.
Awesome. And just as High Fructose?
Yeah, so on Instagram, Kazak Games, but if you search Google Chris Cantero, High Fructose, you'll find me.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending time and really doing a deep dive into this stuff. We'll let Robot Richard send us out.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. For more resources, articles, and to listen to past podcasts, please visit us at crowdfundingnerds.com. And if you have a crowdfunding question, we also have a page on our site where you can send a message directly to us. Please visit crowdfundingnerds.com/question. And if your question is a great question, we may include it in a future podcast. Thank you all again for listening to this week's episode, and we'll see you next week. Stay nerdy.
Tabletone is a phenomenal app. I use it every time I play tabletop role-playing games with my family. It greatly enhances the immersive experience. In fact, it's night and day using it and not using it. It can also be used for board games or any card game. It's great background music. It's made by a company based in Austria who have their own studio, who have developed their own software specifically to cater to your specific needs within the different game settings. So you can control intensity, there's different background noises. You can get it for free, and there's also a trial that you can run for 2 weeks that will give you full access to their entire catalog of sounds and audio. Definitely check it out. Link is in the description. Visit tabletone.app for more details.